All right. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Quiet in the back. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to bring to order this Mobile GR Commission agenda meeting on May 2nd, 2024 at 12 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody. We have a nice crowd today. This commission provides input on parking and mobility-related activities and programs to department staff and makes recommendations to the City Commission on policies related to the activities. As members of the public, we have two opportunities where you can provide comments. You can provide them on items related to our agenda during the first public comment period, and then at the end of the meeting, you can provide general comments. We're not able to respond to your comments directly today, but we are listening, and we will use this feedback for future decisions. So thank you for taking the time. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Lunger is excused. Commissioner Whistling? Commissioner Clark? Here. Commissioner Robbins, I don't see. Commissioner Pavelka? Here. Chairperson Nguyen?
Here.
Vice Chair Mathis?
Here.
Commissioner Kampmeyer is excused. Commissioner Sesa? Commissioner Haynes? Here. Commissioner Patton? Here. Commissioner Rozelle? Here. Commissioner Neinheis?
All right, thank you. First order of business is approval of the minutes from March 7th. They were in your packet. Sorry. Are there any comments or questions? I have a motion. Louder? Oh. Is that better? Okay, sorry. We have a motion. Do I have a second? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, I'll open the floor to public comment on agenda items. The board appreciates having the members of the public attending today to identify themselves before comment. However, it's not required. And in the interest of all of our time and yours, if you could limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. So,
Chairman Nguyen, we did receive some written correspondence, so we'll need to
address those
first,
okay.
And then we can open the floor up
Sounds
if you
good.
don't mind.
Yep.
Okay. Correspondence received from Gwen Verno from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area. Do you receive and file that?
Oh, receive and filed.
Correspondence received from Hal Smedstad from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Carrie Baldwin from the Heritage Hill Neighborhood Association in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Leslie Van Becker from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Lucas McFadden from the Heritage Hill area in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Alexis Van Zalen from the west side in opposition to phase 2 of the residential permit parking area for John Ball area neighbors.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Amanda Hakoyama from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Anna Stowey from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Bex and Brian Britt from the west side area in support of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Elizabeth White McDonald from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Jane Bush from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Jeff Phillips from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Jen Gavin from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Judy Clowney from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Kane Ferrier from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Laura Eitnier from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Lisa McManus from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Madeline Barker from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Mallory Weber and Lucas Eldred from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Michael Sachs from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Monica Wilson from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Reverend Dr. Stephen Coaster from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Tammy Hall from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Tim Hosey from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Jarrett Luke from Heritage Hill in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Sherry McLean Beatty from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from Megan Broda from the west side in opposition of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
Correspondence from the Heritage Hill Neighborhood Association, and neither support nor oppose, but they want more time to engage with residents.
Received and filed.
Finally, also survey results submitted by the Heritage Hill Neighborhood Association with a mix of opposition and support of the residential permit parking area.
Received and filed.
I will also note that we did receive public comment after, between when the packet was revised until today. However, that did not meet the cutoff for this packet, so that will be included in the June packet.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now I will open it up to the public that is present today. Just a reminder, please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes. We will time you and time out if it does go over. So.
Can I start?
Yes.
Great. Hello, my name is James Early. I am a resident of the West Side and the pastor at Servants Community Church. I come to speak against this proposal for myself and on behalf of the community I serve. In light of time, very briefly, as a private citizen, I'm concerned that this proposal negatively impacts me, my family, and my friend groups. It seems ridiculous that should my mother want to come visit her grandchildren for a week, we would have to foot the bill for $15 for her to park in front of our house. That's ridiculous. I'm also concerned that in publicizing this proposal, under neighborhood feedback, it says positive about the program. I don't know who you've been talking to, but I have not heard anything positive about the program thus far in any of my circles. And I'm also struck by the fact that this hearing is not even held within the bounds of the community it would impact. It strikes me that you may not actually want to hear from Westsiders about this. But more importantly, in my role as a pastor of a neighborhood church, I'm especially concerned with the impact this proposal has on our neighbors with less flexible funds and less access to technology. This proposal disproportionately impacts the more vulnerable members of our community who either would not be able to afford or struggle to have access to those $30 permits. And after being ticketed, presumably $30 for failing to have a permit, if they then went and purchased one, the city would be seeing revenue times 2 or more for that person for the simple fact that they had less access and limited accessibility to get those. As it currently stands, I can't support that. And finally, this proposal harms nonprofit organizations' ability to meet the growing needs in our communities. On a weekly basis, our little church, which has no on-site parking, provides social services to more than 100 people during the proposed parking enforcement period. These are services the city is either unable or unwilling to provide for its citizens, so we do it. Most of the people we serve are Westsiders, but not everyone. Not everyone who comes to receive these services would have a parking permit as they park outside, and they're liable to receive fines for the simple act of seeking aid and assistance. And partners who come from outside of our community to help provide those services could also be penalized for the simple act of trying to help others. We are just one of many small organizations providing for the common good of our community who rely on street parking. I would name the Other Way Ministries, which provides much needed food assistance, and Grace's Table, which provides critical social services for single mothers, as partner organizations who would be negatively impacted and whose the people they serve would also be negatively impacted by this proposal. And we three are still only a small sample of those providing for the needs of the community who rely on street parking. If access to these services is limited by this proposal, is the city ready to respond to the added pressure and increased need? If the role of government is to provide for the common good of those within its jurisdiction, This proposal does not seem to do that. Rather, it penalizes members of this community in response, frankly, to the city's insatiable thirst for revenue to fund unsustainable growth.
Thank you.
We didn't ask for this.
Your time is up. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Cody. I'm here on behalf of the Heritage Hill Association, and I would like to read the letter that we submitted, the one on the screen there. Dear Mobile GR Commission, on behalf of Heritage Hill Association, we are writing to provide input regarding certain residential parking permit, RPP, program zone proposals. On April 17th, 2024, we welcomed representatives from Mobile GR to our Heritage Hill Association board meeting. This presentation was for informational purposes only, and it was agreed between Mobile GR and HHA that this was not a formal feedback session. We were informed that this was a preliminary step to letting the board and our community know what updates are proposed and to follow this presentation with community feedback sessions at later dates. These sessions were offered by Mobile GR both before and during the board meeting. We would like to thank Mobile GR staff for their presentation at our board meeting. However, our board's response to the presentation is reported incorrectly in Trent Sarah's slides that appear in your agenda packet for May 2nd, 2024. A major role of the HHA is to inform and seek feedback from the community and to best represent what the majority of our neighbors believe should happen within our community. We did not at our April 17th meeting, nor do we currently take a formal position on the current RPP zone proposals for Heritage Hill. This includes both the zone that Mobile GR presented at our April 17th meeting and the revised zone included in Trent Sarah's slides. This is because we have not yet received sufficient information from, nor have we had the opportunity for community engagement with Mobile GR on these proposals. However, we do have some information on how at least some of the residents view the zone proposals. We sought preliminary community through an online survey sent to approximately 1,000 Heritage Hill residents. This survey was sent out on Monday, April 29th, 2024. As of this writing for this letter on May 1st, we have had 82 responses. Less than 1% are for the changes. That means 99% of the responses from those 82 responses, more of which we have received since today, they're opposed for it. 99% of our community out of the 1,000, or the 84 people that responded. We strongly believe that Mobile GR and the department and the commission must slow down, provide detailed information on why proposals are made, and ensure community engagement to properly determine what would be best for the community and, most importantly, what is best for the residents who reside on the affected blocks. The goal, after all, is to provide relief to the residents. Some areas may not need relief at all, others may need it badly. It is highly important for the residents on these blocks to have a say in this process when it is going to directly affect them the most. With the above in mind, we believe that Mobile GR should not move forward on any RPP zone proposals for Heritage Hill until after thorough community engagement with Heritage Hill residents. Such engagement should start with Mobile GR, providing residents with detailed information on Mobile GR's reasoning in drawing up specific zone boundaries, such as parking capacity and occupancy.
time.
Yeah, time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Jessica Young. I'm the Executive Director of the East Hills Council of Neighbors. I am here to say that representatives from Mobile GR, Jennifer and her team came and presented to us at our neighborhood meeting last month. And we are grateful to the Mobile GR team for their work to improve and refine their research data about parking. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate that they came to communicate that data to us, because we are very interested in collecting all the data that we can. It took initiative to put together this sort of first ever commission-led proposal, and I believe that the motive for that is valid. East Hills is the most congested, the most densely populated neighborhood in the city, and so it makes sense that our streets are congested. But based on feedback from our board, from speaking with the neighbors for the past few weeks, Following that meeting and from my peers in community work, this program is not what our neighborhood needs or wants at this time. I requested that East Hills be excluded from the current residential parking permit program proposal, and I am grateful that Mobile GR was very responsive to my request to be excluded by working quickly ahead of this meeting to revise those proposed maps. I hope that everyone in this room and everyone who has written in will feel the same way soon. I will follow the data and any future residential parking program elsewhere in the city very closely, especially if a program moves forward in Heritage Hill. With Belknap Lookout as an example, it seems that without further action to mitigate that congestion in the parking, parking can move from those cars can kind of just move from permit-only streets into the surrounding area and then cause those streets to need permits and so on and so on. So I'm going to give up my time because I am very grateful to you all for already being responsive to East Hill's request. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd just like to say I apologize if I have to interrupt anybody at 3 minutes. We really do want to get as much comment in as we can, so I'm not used to interrupting people, so I just would like to apologize, but good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I have a very short comment. My name is Pat Fisher. My family and I own a small business on Fulton Street, close to John Ball Park. And basically, if you take away all of the businesses parking on Fulton Street up near the park, you're going to put some businesses out of business. With beer trucks, food trucks, soda trucks, you name it, parking is already congested, and sometimes it takes up the majority of our parking lots. So I'm obviously in opposition, at least the way the boundaries are laid out right now, because if we don't have Fulton Street parking, we're in big trouble. And thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marcus Barron. I'm a resident on the west side near Sacred Heart Parish. I'd like to say that thank you for taking the time to listen to me and what everyone else is sharing today. I'd like to express that I am in opposition of this proposal. I'm sympathetic to the problem of parking that will only be increasing with the expansion of the amphitheater, the zoo, and the soccer field, but this solution or this proposal really is not a solution. In fact, it seems like a very thoughtless solution. I want to echo what the pastor was sharing about family members coming to visit. My mother-in-law watches our kids on a regular basis. She will have to pay, conservatively, $100 a year just to come visit her grandchildren and her family, let alone my parents coming. So anybody who comes and visits our family, they're going to have to pay money, and this is going to be a hassle, something that we have to deal with until we move. And to me, that just seems pretty inconsiderate. I also think unintended consequences are going to arise because, frankly, people are not going to just endlessly pay money to solve this problem. And I'm talking about for visitors especially. I know for us, we have a driveway. All we're going to end up doing is we're going to move our car a little bit forward, and our visitor's just going to block the sidewalk on our driveway. Not sticking out into the street, but they will definitely be blocking the sidewalk. And I'd like to say, as a father who has young children, we prioritize going for walks, and it is already an issue that we have to constantly go into the street to go around cars parked in driveways. That will only increase with this parking restriction. Additionally, I'd like to say that, let's see. I guess the last thing I just would like to express is with the expansion that we're talking about between the zoo and the soccer field and the amphitheater, it seems to me that the city has been prioritizing, especially lately, its ambitions and what it wants to do over its residents. And all that's going to happen is it's going to make it unpleasant to live in the city. My wife and I already have talked periodically about leaving the city because of various issues like this. If you want to have a good, solid neighborhoods, you need to consider your residents first before your ambitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Wendy Olson. I'm a property owner on Lake Michigan Drive, and I want to come here today to say that I am in opposition of this proposed parking permit program. And it sounds like I'm not alone. So just to recap, you guys intend to charge residents to park who already pay property taxes, that are homeowners, that are here because they love the city of Grand Rapids, they love the West Side. Property taxes are already too high. There's already groups out there trying to eliminate them because they just keep going up. And I get that there's reasons for cost increases, but you're proposing a $30 parking permit, and I can guarantee you it's not going to stay at $30. And you have to think about the families in the neighborhoods, and that's what's important. Not the money, not the dollars, not the amphitheater, not the zoo, not the soccer stadium, it's the families. We've already heard from people that are talking about their in-laws or their parents coming to visit their grandchildren, and they're going to have to pay as well. Think about how that harms our neighborhoods, how it harms our families, how it diminishes the ability to gather with family and friends because they can't come park in front of your house because they don't have a permit, can't afford the permit. Think about how all of the families right now are struggling pretty much to pay for everything. The small businesses that are struggling, all that's going to do is take away from them. This also promotes, in my opinion, an urban sprawl, and it will just continue to harm the community where the homeowners will be eventually forced out to sell to bigger corporations that are going to build apartment buildings and continue the gentrification of our communities. We're not going to have communities anymore. People are going to keep to themselves. They're not going to invite family and friends over when they have to continue to pay to just enjoy the property that they already pay taxes on. So in my opinion, if you need places for parking, build a ramp. Don't put it back on the community. Don't make homeowners pay for this. It's not their financial burden. So I just feel, in my opinion, that we could do better. We can find a better solution, and that we need to think of the families in the community first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Byron. I'm a resident of the West Side. I live a block away from John Ball Park. And everyone that I have spoken to in my neighborhood and my community is opposed to this proposal. In a region where you'd think that there might be some congestion and a lot of non-resident parking, there is virtually no on-street parking in my area that's taken up by people who are not residents or the guests of residents. This is a punishment for homeowners, for property owners, for residents in the West Side. Your proposal will charge us an additional yearly tax to park our cars, buy our homes, to have our guests over, and for the illusion of alleviating some non-existent outsider parking. And it is incredibly frustrating that I have to be here in the middle of the day on a Thursday instead of at work to say this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bethany. I work at the Other Way Ministries on West Fulton, and I'd like to indicate that I do not support the parking proposal in its current form without some serious community listening and changes made. If it is determined after the construction of the soccer stadium that protection for residential parking is required, then it should not be the residents that have to bear the burden of poor urban planning. When I first found out about this plan on Monday of this week, as probably did most of the people in this room, I was pleasantly surprised to see that there was already an accommodation in place for those folks receiving government assistance to be able to waive the fee for them. However, I would like to point out that that will only work for those folks who are those low-income folks who are eligible for government assistance, who are technologically literate, and who can provide the documentation required by the online permitting system. Right now, the system, the webpage indicates that you're going to require vehicle registration, driver's license or ID, proof of residency or address, and license plate number. And I can tell you with certainty that in the West Side neighborhood, there are going to be a lot of people that are not going to be able to provide one or more of those documents for a variety of reasons. So while you have accommodations in place for low-income folks, the lowest of the low income are still going to be affected. I think, for example, well, as an alternative to the current requirements, I think, for example, of the MO2 parking program, which is Grand Rapids' premier only, I think, management program for paid public parking. MO2 does not require a copy of a state ID. MO2 does not require a copy of an updated parking or updated vehicle registration, and that is because those items are not necessary to determine whether a car is parked illegally or not. Asking for more than the absolute minimum is going to be a burden on the already burdened people in our neighborhood who, for a variety of reasons, cannot provide proof of address or vehicle registration or a driver's license. And I would like to make sure that you have those people in mind as you develop and change this plan and make accommodations for those who are most in need, who are suffering the most already. Protect the residents. Don't make us pay for something that we didn't ask for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zach Cook. I own and operate a business in the 1100 block of Bridge Street, just in Section 2 of this proposed parking section. We are here to discuss the proposed residential parking permit program. As a resident, I directly oppose this concept. The residents of the Swan and John Ball area neighborhood do not benefit directly from this program in any fashion. In fact, it's a slap in the face. But not only a slap in the face, it's also a reach into our pockets for our wallets. The city and Grand Action do not have enough courtesy to take action to design a stadium with parking directly attached to it. And on top of this, they want us to charge residents to park in front of our own houses. Let us take a look at some other venues around town. Studio Park attached parking directly to their entertainment center. DeVos Performance Hall has parking underground and above ground directly across the street. Van Andel has parking garages on every adjacent corner. Why is this stadium any different? The fact that this stadium is being built over multiple existing parking lots, creating an immediate parking shortage issue, only to have the solution be for the residents to be charged a fee, be inconvenienced, and frustrated is asinine. Again, the residents do not benefit from this stadium. The bars, restaurants, hotels, businesses along Bridge Street, Fulton Street, and downtown are the ones who benefit. The residents only feel the aftermath of this stadium. I have a couple of simple proposals to alleviate the parking issues. Proposal 1, stadium builds parking underground or attached directly to the stadium. This way the patrons of the game pay for their parking. They're close to the stadium, they incur the cost of the parking. This alleviates the residents from any inconvenience, solves your parking issues, and keeps the local businesses able to see the boom from the extra patrons coming into town. If the stadium does, and we do have to have parking protection, then the city of GR creates a Stockbridge area tax. Take the number of parking permits you think will be issued, multiply it by $30, then tax the businesses in that area annually for it. This means the residents do not pay for their cars, as it should be, and the businesses that will see increased income can kick some of it back towards the permits to cover the business they're bringing in. In closing, we need to push back on the designers and the developers of this stadium to do what is right and create parking directly at the stadium. This proposal does not even guarantee that we West Siders will get parking close to our residents. It's simply a parking tax for the West Side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this public comment opportunity. My wife and I have lived on the lower west side of Grand Rapids for 30 years. During that time, we have seen many changes. Increased cars parking on streets due to GVSU students renting houses in neighborhoods, often adding 3, 4, 5 cars to a house. Increased parking demand due to recent development on Bridge Street has added a further burden on residential streets. These developments have also driven up rental rates to a point that many people can't afford to live on the west side anymore. Now we hear of this proposed plan to charge us $30 a year to park in front of our houses and apartments, and $2 per guest parking space per visit. It's already a problem without even parking November to April. With the parking permits, there is no guarantee that a resident will be able to park in front or near their house or apartment. Charging people to park where they have always parked isn't going to solve the increased parking load. Now we hear that part of the reason for this permit idea is because of the new soccer stadium and the added burden on already crowded streets. People out of the area will park on our streets to attend games and events at the stadium. That's a given. I do not believe that charging residents to park where they live is going to fix anything. It's an added burden for people who already are overburdened. This seems to be a way to make it easier for the new owners of the soccer stadium to be able to claim they will have sufficient local parking. If you intend to institute this policy, it should be for every neighborhood in the city of Grand Rapids, and I'm pretty sure if you did that, none of the city commissioners would get reelected. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name is Julia. I am a resident of the West Side. Some of my questions were answered and some of my major concerns, so I appreciate it. Bethany mentioning that there is compensation for low-income households. I work with a service provider, so that was a major concern in coming here. But I think there are other things that you can take into account when thinking of how do we support those who already live in the community, instead of asking for additional information. If you had to, worst case scenario, move forward with this proposal, look for a mailing, any sort of mail or identification or lease. That's all you really need to know. Someone shouldn't have to pay for parking just because there's an economic development happening around them. It just increases the gentrification and potential push out, so I just want to be mindful of that. And then I would say also, kind of like some other folks have mentioned, there is no guarantee that parking will be sustained in front of the home. You're just adding an additional burden to someone to have to go through paperwork, to go through the process. So I just want to be mindful, again, as we think about development of the city, how can we think about it in a way where it doesn't tax those who already live there? And that's really my biggest concern with it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Kortenhoven, and I live on Union in Heritage Hill, and just looked at this last night and a bit this morning, and I'm not sure how it affects exactly us because the maps are kind of hard to see. But the thought that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren, my children would have to have a special pay to come park in front of our house to see us, I think you need to hear from a grandma too. That's crazy. And I have a big problem understanding exactly how all of this is going to be enforced. It sounds as complicated as can be to enforce what you're talking about. I've lived in the Hill in different areas since 1968, and having this come along now is just simply shocking and a nightmare that could happen. I realize you were talking more about the West Side. I understand what they're saying. I feel for them. I don't want it to happen to us too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Bloom. I'm the Executive Director of the Other Way Ministries. We're a direct service organization right in West Fulton. We've been there for nearly 60 years. Good to see you, Commissioner Robbins. I'm glad you were able to come today. I hope you hear your constituents speaking. I'm here in opposition of this proposal as it is stated currently. We work with folks to avoid and overcome barriers, and so when we see something that has a lot of barriers attached, it's a red flag. So we brought a little busload of people here today. I encourage all of them who came to come up and speak, if only to say hello, their name, and how they feel about this. I think the numbers matter. I'd also like you to just take in for a second how many people are here right now speaking. Most of us had about 3 days' notice to figure this out in the middle of the day, so I hope that speaks to the breadth of the real opinions that are out there. There are quite a few, and I haven't heard a lot of positive ones. I'd like to reiterate the point that it was in the materials, that some of the need for this is related to the recent developments, both of which, as I understand, the city has allowed to proceed without adding a single parking space, and as somebody recently pointed out, actually eliminated some parking spaces. What else? You guys have already said so much. Everybody is really hitting these points here, but, I forgot to mention, we do run a food pantry that sees upward of 1,000 people, households every month that park on West Fulton, and I would hate to see any kind of deterrent that would stop somebody from from being able to park when they're already there because they are in need of food. Our pantry service area, based on the other pantries in the city, goes beyond the west side, so that would be guest parking, I would suppose. So I'm sure I'm leaving some stuff out, but I've heard a lot of really good points already and just want to add one more name to that, and I encourage you all to come up and do the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leah Meyer. Although I am not a resident of the Grand Rapids areas being affected, I am a resident of Grand Rapids, and the areas being affected are very near and dear to my heart through both the population that I work with and my social circles. I am very privileged in the work that I do to be able to take an hour out of my time on a Thursday afternoon to leave my place of work and come to a meeting such as this. I just want to say that I am in opposition to the proposal as it currently stands. As Grand Rapids grows and expands, the city's residents need a sustainable solution for its expanding needs. Expecting residents to pay for street parking outside of their own residence in response to the expansion of businesses is not sustainable, especially when many of those neighborhoods are filled with people with disproportionately fewer resources and fewer means of accessing resources. I can't say anything about the restrictions, the lack of assessment from individual community members that has not already been said by others at this podium. But I do just want to reiterate that if Grand Rapids plans to continue growing and expanding, we need an infrastructure to be created to make that growth sustainable. I would like you to consider how other growing and large cities have managed concerns such as this, namely Chicago and Minnesota. I would encourage you to do some research or some coordination with their government officials to find sustainable solutions. I would encourage you to consider who this proposal would affect, that it is not the members of the businesses in need of parking, it is the residents who would be affected. And consider who is responding to the surveys that you put out. I learned about this meeting yesterday at 8 p.m. and once again was privileged to be able to make it here today because I had not received communication about this proposal, and because I had not received communication about this proposal, I did not have the opportunity to provide input. Similarly, I expect that other members of the community who would be affected by this proposal have not been given the opportunity to be made aware of this proposal and to have their responses heard. In closing, please do not put the burden of sustainability on the residents, especially when some of those residents are already struggling with the burdens of day-to-day life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jacob Baker. I live on the west side, a block from the zoo as well. In addition to all the opposition that's been addressed already, some very reasonable and alarming concerns that need to be addressed, I also would like to raise a concern about the general use of this resident permit parking program. As soon as I learned about this about a week ago, I did what I do. I started to research and trying to figure out what was going on with this, how did this happen. And I learned that this program actually started in 2013 with Belknap Lookout. Some of you probably know this well. And it was driven by the residents. They had no solution for their parking. The hospital traffic and the commuters coming in were taking their spots, and so they needed a way to be able to park in front of their houses. And they came with the proposal, which eventually turned into this program. It required a vote by the residents at that time to be approved. And in its initial drafting of this program, all further projects also required a vote. This was removed in 2018 because of concerns of the cost of holding these elections, concerns with efficiency and not being able to respond agilely as a city to parking needs, but also removed a lot of opportunity for residents to really weigh into these matters. I think it's worth noting that at this point, there are, besides Belknap Lookout, there are 2 other blocks in the city that have this permit zone. The map that you sent out proposes covering a 2 to 3 square mile area in a permit parking zone. That's a vast expansion of a program that really hasn't been vetted on a larger scale. In the cases of where the zone exists currently, there are opportunities to park nearby, within a block or 2, either paid or otherwise. So if you can't use those spots, there's something else available. What's someone gonna do in the middle of this zone? Where are they gonna go if they need to park there? There's just no solution as the program stands currently. So like I said, and then one more point I wanted to make. As you noted in your March 2024 agenda packet, with the new designation of the spots in the city, right? So you hired a company to redo the mapping of the city and estimating the spots. We went from having an estimated 11,000 to 8,000 spots in the 8,300 spots in the city. That's from removing driveways, from fire hydrants that were being counted previously that are actually spots you can park. But with that change, we haven't shifted the percent occupancy that requires looking into matters, right? So this permit zone parking is supposed to be considered if occupancy is above 75%. That uses those old numbers. We've changed the denominator, but not adjusted our math at all. So it just doesn't really fit logically. And I think you know this already. We went from having 6 blocks in the city that were above occupancy to 1,300. That doesn't make sense.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Hi, I'm Lisa McManus. I live at 300 College. I live in Heritage Hill. And I agree with all those opposed and the reasons for it. It feels a lot like this is a solution to a problem that we haven't faced yet in most neighborhoods. I'm here to represent my neighborhood and the blocks adjacent to us. Most of my neighbors could not be here today because they're working. And as a result, I want to represent them. I also want to talk to you about communication and collaboration. We've just been through a lot with the zoning changes. Most of us don't feel that we were included in that process to the degree that we wanted to be. So I would ask that you all lead the charge, perhaps, to really start looking at what the whole communication process is. Because right now, it feels like we're using 1950 processes to reach an audience that's not listening or not hearing until it's too late. I would like to see a measurement that says, well, how many people did we get, and what are they getting the message, rather than the checklist of I did this, I did this, I did this, and so I communicated. So what if they don't read the paper anymore? So I'd like to see that changed at the city, and hope that you'll take a look at what happened here and how it could be changed. The other thing I wanted to add is that there is a cost to enforcement of this. When we don't have a problem, at least most of us feel we don't have a problem, and yet we're putting more costs to enforce on the city, there must be a payback to the city. I mean, a lot of people are saying, what the heck is going on here? We're being charged. Is this to help the city raise money? That is not what we want. And so I would take a look at that as well. Enforcement will be an issue, and hopefully this won't come to pass. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isabel, and I work over the West Side area. I will not take the 3 minutes because I don't think I have too much to say. But life is already cruel with vulnerable people, vulnerable families. Where I work, I get to see people that they don't have an address, so they are sleeping in the vehicles. Have you thought about that, people? Sleeping in the vehicles, parking maybe in front of my house or in front of your house. They are homeless because life is very cruel for a lot of people, and they don't have money to pay rent, to pay a hotel. They wouldn't have money to be paying you $2 per night or per day. So don't see us as okay, these people, they work, they get money every 2 weeks or every month or every year. See us as your brothers and sisters. We may be looking different, and we are different, but at the end of the day, is somebody so powerful that created us and give us a roof without charge. Stop charging the people that is giving life to this community. The West Side has become a very vibrant community, but there is no more space to be parking more vehicles. There is no more space. I invited you to come to National Avenue Southwest any day. There is no more room. There is no more space. The invitation is there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How y'all doing? Carl Williams, Community Engagement of the Way Ministries. I canvassed the community yesterday with about 50 flyers, Adriel. And I spoke to the college student, the senior citizen, and everybody in between. What their question was this, for example, if I pay for that space, and it might not be in front of my home, wherever it is, if someone goes in there, am I able to go out and challenge them? How's that going to go? If I move, can I take it with me? These are some of the questions that I asked, and they were saying, if I don't pay the 30, is it going to go up? How's it going to be monitored? By my license plate, sticker in the window, and who's going to do the monitoring? And I was just letting you know this is what the answers that people in our community were saying. What happens if, A, I don't, or move and they won't? So I just thought I'd throw that in there. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Nguyen, Commissioner Robbins, members of Mobile GR. My name is Michael Sack. I've been involved in the West Side for 65 years. Our family has resided more than probably 100 years on the West Side. DTH, as I've always called it, that was down the hill. So it was always an honor, and as an elected official, I served as a county official for 16 years, and then for 6 years as a state representative, not only representing the West Side, but also Heritage Hill, downtown Grand Rapids, as well as the East Side. I think the first issue that you should take into consideration is Mobile GR. I strongly encourage their community engagement is lacking, and their transparency is lacking. So that's the first issue. I found out about this on Sunday with an email from the John Ball Park Neighborhood Association and started making constant communication with the individuals that I know. I won't be repetitive because every one of these individuals have spoken eloquently to the points and positions. You had a 3 or 4 day notice, and look at the turnout that you have. And the only one, I'll only speak on behalf of the West Side of the individuals that I spoke with, because I have also properties on the West Side, tenants that I've spoken with that are completely opposed to this proposal. So, like I had said, that I've never, when I was an elected official, I have never heard 99.9% of an individual or a group of individuals who are completely opposed to a proposal. And this is what you see today. You've heard one individual through an email that stated that they are supportive of it. So in conclusion, I would just ask you, listen to these residents, listen to these businesses, listen to these people who are be impacted on a day-to-day basis with this proposal. So I don't know what the process is today, if you're going to take it up as an agenda item or if it's just for informational purposes, because none of this was provided to us as individuals, I would say that Westside should opt out, or as individual members of Mobile GR and committee members, that you completely oppose this proposal for the paid residential parking permit, and please listen to the citizens of Grand Rapids. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Hello, my name is Mark Essenberg. I am the Director of Outreach and Enfolding at Gold Avenue Church on Gold Avenue in between Fulton and Lake Michigan Drive. I just found out about this last night, and so I haven't had a lot of time to prepare statements, but as so many have said, I resonate with everything that has been said here so far. I not only work and spend most of my time on the west side, but I also live there. Just happens to be that I live just outside of where this proposed parking zone is, and I have a lot of friends who live within this area. So I think most of my feelings about opposing this on that basis of being a visitor to the neighborhood to my friends, having family come and visit, those have already been stated many times. One thing that I want to share from our church's perspective is that we're fortunate to actually have a parking lot at our church, which our patrons can use for events and things that we have, which we do have during the week in addition to Sunday. So I know Sunday it wasn't proposed to be enforced, but what I see this, if this proposal went through, what I would see happening is people starting to park in our lots, residents parking in our lots, which we already struggle with a little bit. If we have an event, we need our parking spaces for people who are coming to those events so that our people aren't having to park on the streets and take up residents' parking spaces. So we're always thinking about that too as a church. How can we be serving our neighbors and be taking into consideration how to be a good neighbor as a church, and also as an organization that does a lot of reaching out. We work a lot with these other organizations that have been up here speaking, and yeah, it just seems to be really, I don't know, I want to be really nice about how I say it, but putting the parking solution on the residents by making them pay for their own parking spots just seems to be the reverse of what should happen. If there was some kind of a parking zone, the residents should be the ones that aren't paying for their spots, and the people coming into the neighborhood from other places, maybe they should be the ones paying for the spots. But even in this case, that would affect me as a resident coming to visit my friends or doing anything like that too. So I don't know what the solution is, but this proposal, right as it is definitely not it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Buskard. I am a maintenance woman for Westtown Jubilee Housing. I can assure you that none of our tenants can afford this, and many of our properties do not have their own driveway. They do have to park on the streets. Also, I live in Wyoming. I don't know how I'm going to verify my address for parking when I have to go to work. To me, this whole thing just seems like a huge money grab. Ways to ticket $20 to hundreds of people a day. It's just a way to continue to oppress the poor and pad the pockets of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I represent the Polish Falcons at 957 West Fulton, and we have several concerns, which I'll only touch on two. First, why is this meeting here at the library versus being held in the area of concern, the West Side Corridor that is affected, and also at noon when many of us have to work during that day? Luckily, this is such an important matter, I rearranged my schedule to be here. I identified 8 locations over there that could handle the size crowd and more. Second, we the members and board of Falcons oppose this idea wholeheartedly. We rely on street parking since we don't have a parking lot for all of our activities, especially during Pulaski Days, which we rely on to continue our mission of social, economic, charitable, and cultural programming involving both Polish and other nationalities. We have been here since 1927, making us almost 100 years in existence, and instituting this permit program will force our closure. There are 3 other Polish halls affected in this area, and it'll hurt them also, especially during Pulaski Days when all we need the business for our survival. I don't think this commission realizes the parking issues that have resulted in their poor decisions in the past. One is the non-requirement for parking when new houses, apartments go up. Over the past few years, even our neighbor to the east put up several townhouses, and while he has a small parking lot, his residents don't use it, and they squeeze all of their cars on the side streets near our club. That alone has been devastating for our members, and we have lost parking there. In closing, I hope that you reconsider this idea and look into another alternative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shayla Hayden, and I live on the west side on Vito Street. I am in direct opposition of this proposal. To share my direct response is disgust for the method of education of this proposal and distrust that the city's real intentions was not to actually give an opportunity to its residents to respond. I do not feel like there was transparency, and as a resident, I do not feel supported by the city of Grand Rapids because of this. Another response of mine is that I do not have an automatic benefit from the soccer stadium, but I am automatically, monetarily, I would consider oppressed if this proposal was going to be taken into effect. And my community is directly challenged, and the responsibility for coping with the parking issue and the costs are put on them. Even if I don't mind paying a $30 fee every year, the idea that I would only be able to create community with one vehicle visiting my house 5 times in a month is ridiculous. If I have to pay $2 for every visitor, there will be a sharp decline in the flexibility for community engagement in my home, which is the main reason why I live in the city versus the country. I'm also concerned as a new mother who would be receiving help from my grandparents and parents, some of whom will be directly challenged to come and visit me. If the parking struggle is coming from a stadium, the stadium should be self-sustainable, and the issue should not be shifted from the stadium to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Greetings. I stand here today as a representative of IATSE, that is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. Specifically, I represent IATSE Local 26, which is based here in Grand Rapids. We have jurisdiction all throughout West Michigan. Many of our employees that work for IATSE travel sometimes 20, 30, or even 40-plus minutes to come to work jobs in Grand Rapids at Van Andel, DeVos Hall, or other locations around. Places from Kalamazoo, Holland, or even Lansing. As it stands, you may notice that I have a button on my chest that says free parking. We're currently attempting to negotiate with our contracts.
I don't mean to interrupt, but is this on the proposed agenda item? There will be a period of public comment at the end if you wish to speak on other matters.
Perhaps I should come back at the end. I was going to comment a bit on the proposed matter as well.
I just wanted to verify that.
Okay, but I'll go sit down and come back at the end then.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dawn, and I live on the west side of town. And we walk the west side as well as downtown all of the time. And I agree with everybody who's spoken at this point in time in regards to the issues that will come from this kind of thing. But there's another issue that hasn't been addressed, and I really think that you guys need to take this moving forward, because if I understand correctly, the purpose of this group is to look at all of us in moving forward in Grand Rapids, and that includes your disabled community. I have an invisible disability, meaning you can't look at me and say, oh, that's what's wrong with her, that's why she has a service dog. But I also run with a lot of people who are in mobility carts, in wheelchairs, in walkers, et cetera, and Grand Rapids already has a problem, a very large problem with disability access. Doing this in neighborhoods is going to make the disability access far greater than it already is. I hope that you can take that piece of information forward, because when you take residents who already have disability issues and make it, okay, now we have to get a permit, and is the permit good, and am I parked in the right spot, and everything else, and those of us who actually use vehicles with ramps, and have to be in a very specific spot for the ramp to drop, for people to be able to get out of their vehicle, this is not the way to fix it. We do have a parking problem in Grand Rapids. We all know that. Nobody's talking about that, but we all know it. But the solution to that is not by taking and putting the burden on the residents. The way that we handle this is taking it back to the city, taking it back to all of the other groups that are causing the larger numbers of people to be in the areas, and saying, okay, how are we going to fix this from that level? Those of us who have disabilities are already struggling to navigate the streets in Grand Rapids. There are too many cars that are parked over sidewalks. It was already said, it will increase. Oh, it will. And those of us who use service dogs, those of us who have mobility parts are already having a trouble. And when we call to have this resolved, when we call the city of Grand Rapids, when we call the police department, when we call all of these other people to have this resolved, we are told, word for word verbatim, it is not our job to enforce. So how is it that you plan on doing this and then having it enforced? When I have members of my community who are in a wheel cart, who are in an intersection that is already lit for pedestrians to cross and is almost hit by a rapid bus, and we are told by the city of Grand Rapids, by the police department, and by the Rapids themselves, this is not ours to enforce. Whose is it? How is making this in the neighborhoods going to make that problem get resolved? It is not.
Excuse me, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jack Lensack, and I live at 244 College Southeast, member of Heritage Hill. I've lived there since 2000, and I've owned the property since 1985. I have 4 tenants who help pay the rent, of course, but I'm also representing them. And as you can see, I'm a biker, and there's a reason. One of the reasons for being a biker is to avoid paying parking meters downtown. Now, that's an idea. Maybe you could put parking meters on bike racks. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I oppose the proposal, and many of my neighbors do, and I can see a lot of people in the city do for many different reasons. My reason is very simple, and this will be the end of what I'm going to say. There's an old saying that goes, like, I don't think Heritage Hill has a parking problem. I've never had someone visit me or my tenants and couldn't find a parking space. So my advice is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margot Sodini Johnson. I am with the John Ball Area Neighbors Neighborhood Association. I am the president of the organization. About a month ago, Mobile GR came in and presented this program to us. We did not take a position at that time. What we said is we need to hear from our neighbors because this could be a big burden on them, and we need to hear from them. We were told to postpone posting it until they met with the other neighborhoods, so we just did that, posted it over the weekend. We really do think this is premature. We represent the neighbors. I think you've adequately heard from them today what their position is on the west side. And I also encourage you, here is 35 pages of comments from neighbors opposing this, with the exception of 3 people so far. And also look at We Are West Siders and Save John Ball Park, because there's additional comments there, all opposing the program as it's written. So right now, it's premature. The burden should not be on the neighbors. They did not create this. And so we are going to support our neighbors, and do not hesitate to reach out to the neighborhood organization, any of you, if you need any further information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Lee. I live in the 500 block of College Avenue Southeast, within the boundaries of this proposed parking change. I only came about this, I found out this information just a few days ago or beginning of this week, only because it was something that was communicated through the East Hills Council of Neighbors. They do a fantastic job getting the word out within East Hills. And I think that is the reason why, or is that the only reason why they have been removed from this proposed parking area? Because they've had the opportunity to talk to all the residents and then talk to you guys. Yeah, so I live in the 500 block. I have my own driveway. It's an old home. Many of the homes around there are old. There's plenty of parking in the area, but to plenty of parking in the area, but to maintain these homes takes a lot of work. So if you were to drive down any one of these side streets off of Wealthy, you will see contractor vehicles. You know, we had our home being remodeled, redone. It's over 100 years old. It took 4 months, every day, 5 different contractor vehicles. So now you're putting the additional burden on us to provide visitor parking for those contractors, or else they run the risk of getting a ticket. Some of this work was done in the wintertime, where it's odd even parking. So that already eliminates half the parking. But even then, it was not an issue. I also have some businesses on Wealthy Street, and you know, I don't have any issue with the parking meters. I think it's actually been great. But yeah, like I was saying, sorry, I'm rambling here, but I'm echoing on many of the sentiments of the people here. Is that you know, one of the stated goals of Mobile GR is to support the goals of the City of Grand Rapids, the economic and quality of life goals. But just listening to everybody here, I think the only goal that's being supported is the economic side, not the quality of life for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Leslie Van Becker, and my husband Edward Clifford and I live at 539 Paris Avenue Southeast. We've been residents of Heritage Hills since 1977, and we've seen a huge change in our neighborhood. We are opposed to this proposal. We own 3 rental buildings. This will be taxing our tenants. It will be an additional payment on top of their rents. One of our buildings is 5 units, and they have 2 people living in each unit. We can't even get our trash picked up because there's cars in, we don't have off-street parking. So they are going to have to pay to park on top of their rents. So I think you should think about tenants in these buildings. That's an extra cost to them, and I don't see that it's going to solve any problems on any of the blocks that we own. I personally feel like this, we already pay over $11,000, maybe $12,000 a year in property tax to the City of Grand Rapids. We can't even get our garbage picked up correctly. So you are going to be taxing me. I'm a professional, my husband and I are professional musicians. In addition to having to pay if family members come to visit, or friends, God forbid we would have a dinner party. So I have a quartet coming over to rehearse. I have to pay for parking for each one of my people. We have people, we rehearse at our home. So what's going on with that? So I feel this is taxation without representation. Another thing is, this may have been a well-intentioned proposal, and I'm not looking to insult people, but it would be really good if we had communication, like, what are the reasons for this? Spell it out. Give me the data. We had a survey that we filled out, I think it was at the most last week. So we didn't have hardly any time. I had to rearrange my whole day to come here and speak, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to speak. But after all, we're supposed to be a democracy. The city is supposed to be for the residents. So I want you to consider that we didn't really know about it. And maybe a lot of us don't read the Grand Rapids Press every day and find out stuff. I was on the phone for over an hour trying to get through to move GR yesterday, and was put on hold several times and had to talk over the guy from 311, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So communication, I think, is really an area that we can really improve. And I hope that everybody will listen and to the people that are talking today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Scott Toogood, resident of the city of Grand Rapids, West Side, for 44-plus years. My grandparents were there for 50-plus. So there's a lot of deep roots going on. I have 3 points I'd like to bring up to you. Opposition, obviously. Everybody's opposed to it. You know, there's very, very few in the percentage-wise that's going for this at all. Discrimination. And I'm going to say discrimination because I look at them boundary lines that you guys drew out on that little map. The only people that are targeted are the people on the west side. That's straight out fact. And also, the meeting being at this location, if it's about the west side, you guys should have had the location at the west side. Clarity. There was no communication. I found out about this Wednesday. This seems to be a very under-the-rug meeting here today. The time of it, a Thursday at noon. Why couldn't you make it Thursday at 5 when people get out of work and can actually come to the meeting? I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Trinity McFadden. I'm a resident of Heritage Hill, specifically South Hill, the 500 block of Madison, right by Pleasant Park. My husband and I have lived in this neighborhood on and off for the last 20 years. We specifically moved back to Heritage Hill 2 years ago, bought a property. We're thrilled to be back. We love the community. We love the Pleasant Park. We love everything about it. This proposal is extremely concerning to us. One, I don't see any need at all for it in our neighborhood. We never have a lack of parking, even with all of the rentals around us. So I'm honestly completely befuddled about why this section of Heritage Hill was included in this proposal at all. We did not find out about it until Monday when we got an email from the Heritage Hill Association. So my husband would be here today, but he couldn't get out of work. Fortunately, I have a more flexible schedule, but still a burden today to have to be here to share our opinion with you. We need more data. We need more community engagement on this issue. And I just ask that you really think about the impacts on residents. We are a very social neighborhood. People are in and out all the time. 30 passes for 6 months for guests is just not going to cut it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Phil Mall. I'm a West Sider, been for 57 years. Now you know how old I am. Anyway, I'll just lay it out. I'm against it. I don't think it's a good idea. But let's look at maybe why it's here. Yes, parking has been a challenge on the lower west side, especially near the zoo, near Ace Hardware, stuff like that. But how has it gotten worse? You've taken away parking spots between, especially all the curb bump out things. They make it harder and harder to find a spot, especially in the winter, because the snowplows can't clear that, and it just makes fewer available spaces for an already challenged thing. So you're looking for a solution to a problem that you caused. So
stop it, put it back. Okay, putting it back is expensive, but let's stop at least future stuff. You're already looking at narrowing Valley, which is gonna make parking more difficult, especially in the winter. But another solution in my head is, why don't you line the parking spots on the streets? Often, a car pulls up between two driveways, and they just kind of park in the middle between the two driveways. But if they'd have pulled all the way up or stayed all the way back, you'd have two cars there. But they don't have a visual optic of saying, hey, there's really two spots here. I don't need to park in the middle of it. But that's why Myers uses cheap paint, you know? They just line the parking lot. People know where to park. I think that's a really inexpensive potential solution to your problem. So to recap, don't exacerbate the problem. Don't continue these curb bump outs. Don't continue to narrow the streets. And just line the thing. So have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Camilo del Escudo Quiroga, and there's not much left to be said. I think everyone's pretty much made every point that has to be made. Naturally, the opposition to the proposal at hand. This being a town hall, of course, it should be entered into the record. I'd like to pass a motion by a show of hands for all the members, board members of We the People who are present in this town hall. Can I get a second for a motion to show by hands of all those who are in favor or of this proposal? All those in favor of this proposal, please raise your hand. Let the record reflect for the honorable board members that none of the individuals gathered in their natural capacity making up the sovereign in this community are in favor of the motion that you have attempted to bring before the people today. All are opposed. Therefore, the people have voided and opted out of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jorge. I've lived off the west side for 25 plus years with my family. We live right off of Bridge Street. I've seen the way that the west side has changed over the years. Bars, churches. This meeting could have been held at the West Side Library, West Side. I used to work for the City of Grand Rapids as an equity and outreach coordinator for the Parks Department. So I know that we have an Office of Equity and Engagement. I know we've had a new city innovation manager for a couple years now. The part of the work to talk with your colleagues and come up with better ideas. Mobile GR has had good ideas in the past. When you took away tickets from GRPD, and so I know you guys can make better things, but this proposal deserves obloquy, public criticism. It's half-assed, and we are all in opposition, and I oppose this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred Hulse. I live on the 500 block of College Avenue. I'm coming up on 30 years there. I moved to the area because I wanted a house big enough that I could entertain people. I could have family over. And though I don't do that as much as I used to, I still cherish that possibility. This gets in the way of that. I have a house with a double lot, so I have about 5 or 6 parking spaces in front of my house. In the 30 years I've been there, I don't think I've seen all of those parking spaces taken up more than a handful of times. Never had any difficulty with anybody or complaints of anybody coming to the house saying that they had trouble finding parking. Now, I can't speak to the west side or anything like that. I just found out about this last night. But I can speak to our block. Even in the wintertime, when we have the restricted parking only on one side, nobody's scrambling for parking spaces. We have rental property in the neighborhood. It's a mix between single-family homes and rental units. This falls heavily on the people who can afford it the least. We also have neighbors without driveways. Falls heavily on them. I don't have that problem. Now, I don't know what's happening on the rest of the city on this, but in our neighborhood, what you've proposed here is a burdensome solution to a problem that doesn't exist. And it makes no sense to me at all. So I rise in strong opposition to the proposal.
Thank you. Anybody else? Just a couple comments. For all of you that showed up and people that had to leave, I hope you can let them know you taking the time out of your busy schedule is not lost on us. We appreciate the feedback. As hard as sometimes it is to hear, we take it seriously. We listen. We will listen, and we'll take this back, and we will keep your opinions well into our future decisions. So appreciate it. Next, we have no action items, by the way, so that is good news. Discussion, we're done with that, aren't we? Or is there
No,
more to be?
we will be doing the presentation for the residential permit parking program proposal.
Okay,
And Ariana Jeske will be
okay,
doing that presentation.
all right.
Hello, Ariana Jeske, Assistant Director for Mobile GR. So the residential permit parking program falls under my purview in the Mobility Policy and Planning Group. And I would like to extend that sincere thanks for everybody coming for this. Today, I know it's hard for people to get out here. But I do want to kind of give some perspective on how this process is going and that there's nothing being decided today. So that's kind of where this is generally, we go in that linear order of like, here's all the things we've done, here's our future steps. But I thought this would be information that would be relevant for people to know sooner than now. So this is a briefing and informational moment for the Mobile GR Commission to consider, ask questions of us. And then the next step of this would be that we would be doing more community engagement. We were asked kind of by leadership in the executive office to go out more proactively. And so it was we weren't quite on the schedule that we anticipated for public engagement, but there is much more planned, and we will be going out to the communities again. And the mailers and all the other kind of communication devices that are referenced in our policy will be going out before the next Mobile GR Commission, and then also before, if it's recommended to City Commission, there would be another mailing in that sense. And so we do have public engagement plans from now until the fall. So if this were to go through the full process, this would not say on June, if you're recommending it to go to City Commission, then there would be a briefing, there would be a public hearing date, and then a vote on it. So it's something that this would not be an actionable item for City Commission until about August. And so at that time, and our email is always open till then, and we are available by phone. So just kind of wanted to give that sense of time and urgency and how we, kind of went more proactively in a very targeted way to these community neighborhoods. And then we're kind of, based on what we were going to hear from Mobile GR Commission today, kind of, I guess, get the broadcast out. So nothing being decided today, just wanted to know that is much more targeted just because it was kind of something that, a schedule that was suggested to us. So if you could go back to the first slide, please. So I'm obviously not Trent Zara He is much taller than me. So just kind of a bit of a background. I think you all know how we adjusted, well, we did a data audit to really determine how many parking spaces we do have in the residential areas. And so as we looked at things, we had a huge portion of the city is now meeting that 75% occupancy and that 3 contiguous blocks recommendation within our policy. And so we looked at 2 areas, the John Ball area neighborhood, giving the pressures that are happening over there and how it currently qualifies. And while there is the amount of parking available around for the soccer stadium, that is paid parking. And so this is something that the asset of that parking that is not paid for on the street, we wanted to protect. And so this might be an imperfect tool. It's really our only tool at this point. We don't have a program that's been developed, been vetted by City Commission and other things. So sometimes the hammer is not the best for what you really need to do, but it's our only tool. And that's why we're here listening for feedback and at least offering this as an option for residents.
Could somebody close the door, please?
I believe we have to leave it open.
Oh, we do?
A public meeting.
Oh,
Maybe just one?
I guess we have to leave, at least leave one open.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
So we went and presented to the various neighborhood associations, so John Ball Neighbors, and then also Heritage Hill and East Hills. And then we've been collecting feedback, and actually I'd like to note that there are some things that were amended in our presentation from the first version that went out because of that feedback. We wanted to accurately reflect what we heard from people and accurately represent for the public record. So next slide, please. So the John Ball area neighborhood, I think, has been kind of discussed of why there's an impetus to do this. We have pressures from the zoo. We also have incoming development pressure and other development. So the big thing that we heard from people was there was an area of wide range. There's a lot of uses over there. It's not purely residential. And so we were looking at Fulton Street and how that parking is free now for businesses and how that would be protected, what mechanisms we have for that. Also looking for the non-residential uses. Churches, the Polish halls were specifically called up, and so we have been making a list of those kind of residential uses. We've gone parcel by parcel to figure out how we're going to be able to accommodate those if this proposal goes forward. So we are aware of that. That's kind of where we have to look within our policy and see how we can flex that and how our tools in signage and enforcement can be applied. So we we're looking at the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Most of the major events at the soccer stadium are going to be programmed on Saturdays. Next slide. This is one of these slides that had a correction. There was a comment about positive feedback from Heritage Hill. We may have not accurately, I know, maybe we just enjoyed one gold star and thought it was great. But we did revise that here so that this is accurately reflected in the public record. So it is going to be a single phase if it was going to go in November 24. In some areas of Heritage Hill, they have requested a residential parking permit zone in the past. A little bit more kind of feedback from some of the Heritage Board members and things like that, where we kind of looked back at what we have records of from kind of touches with community and did not have like a specific zone other than that they lived in Heritage Hill. Talking to some of the community members, it looks like the northern end is really what kind of more around GRCC. So that's feedback that we're taking into consideration as we move forward and iterate through this process. So we first proposed a multi-neighborhood, which included the entirety of Heritage Hill. We didn't see how,
It was Heritage Hills and East Hills.
well, yeah, I was going to say plus East Hills, So it was East Hills plus the entirety of Heritage Hill. So when we engaged with East Hills, they were able to get a feedback from their constituents and sent us a letter, an email, and we removed them from the RPP program proposal going forward. We said we would still include it in this agenda because it was a discussion item and kind of the record of what we did. And so, let's see here. The residential blocks of Wealthy were specifically called out to be included, where there's kind of those residential pockets in between some of the commercial areas, and then adjacent neighborhood associations such as South Hills would like to be included in future engagement. Again, we were potentially proposing that 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Next slide. Oh, go back one, please. So this is, to the left, that is the original boundary that we proposed. You can see the one on the right has the East Hills reduced out of it. And then we did extend farther down to Pleasant to the southern boundary of Heritage Hill, based on some of our data. So I think I went over the next steps at the beginning here, but also I'm here and available to answer questions that may have come up during public comment, or you have any specific questions about the residential parking permit program and the policies.
Questions? Comments?
Oh.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. First of all, I wanted to appreciate everyone's engagement on this issue as well. I don't know, I think oftentimes, and we have this at the city commission level too, where there's, you know, an issue or an idea that's proposed by somebody, and there's miscommunication or misunderstanding as to the timeline, time frame, and where exactly we are in a process with a certain issue. So with this in particular, I just want to remind people that this is very early conversations. I've had people come to myself and ask for what these programs could look like for many of our neighborhoods. Again, we're in the very initial conversations of whether this is something the community at Broad would be interested in various neighborhoods, not just the west side, but with other neighborhoods in the city too. I do have some concerns myself about the program. I think parking is something that we have a lot of people who want tons more, and we have other people who feel very strongly that parking is the worst use of city property, and so we need to get rid of it all. So I do think we need to maintain a level set mind and perspective on the true breadth of opinions we get on this issue. That said, I think the city does have some tools, and I applaud this department and many of our other city staff at looking at what options we do have available to weave into our neighborhood. So again, the conversations are very early. For anyone who's listening in online, send us emails too. We read our emails. We read through all the opinions that are sent to us, whether it's in person or via email, and we don't take one worth more weight over than the others too. So just wanted to give that reminder. But thanks for coming out. I think we still have lots of questions to have answered, and if there's information we can provide in the meantime, we will be happy to do so. Thanks.
Just a quick question for clarity. You mentioned in the neighborhood feedback, adjacent neighborhood associations would like to be included in future engagement. For clarity purposes, is that in future conversations, or are they saying they would like to be a part of this if this moves forward?
They would like to be a part of the engagement. So South Hills, which is their boundary, is at Pleasant Street there. They're kind of, I would say, very, not say cozy, but they have a good relationship with Heritage Hill, and so a lot of things that are known to Heritage Hill are being proposed to Heritage Hill are of interest to South Hills. So we've got some feedback from their board members that they would like to be, you know, have a presentation and any other things, because obviously if this is just north of them, there may be some potential issues for them. So that's where we're going to kind of look at that satellite of neighborhood associations around where we're proposing.
I was wondering if you might be able to address the fees and kind of what those cover, the history behind them. I assume it's because we're a self-funded agency of Grand Rapids, but that might help understanding as well.
Yeah, so the $30 a year for the permit is not cost recovery. That is something that we would be supplementing with some of our other funds through the department. Parking tickets, if you do violate the residential parking program, do not go to us. They go to the general fund. So, you know, maybe we can figure out where those dollars go. But it's not something that Mobile GR is making our bottom line better. This costs more to implement, just in terms of the staff time. If you think about all the signage that we have to do, that installation, the new software systems we are setting up to make this a smoother process for people, and just even think about the staff time that we've invested trying to figure out kind of how we would implement this, look at our data, the counts that we do every year for this. So it's something that if this were a business, we would have cut this a long time ago. So it's not anything that is a cost driver for us.
Thank you.
I echo Commissioner Robbins and the community, your input, you were heard. Thank you for that. I took a lot of notes that sadly only I can read, and probably unless they type it up real quick, maybe I won't either. But still, I heard, obviously we all heard a lot. And I think I just have a question about that. Is there an existing portal, if you will, or FAQ or anything that we can kind of proactively share, whether that's answering questions that we have or just timelines and documents?
Yeah, so I did actually receive a nice list of questions from the John Ball area neighbors. Came in at about 2 yesterday, and I kind of felt like I was back in college writing an exam, trying to answer those for today. But those are some of the kind of common questions that they were able to go through, say all the Facebook comments and other things, and kind of have what the main concerns are. So I think there was some misinformation about guest passes and being limited. There wasn't a whole lot of information about caregiver passes. So if you have a full-time nanny or you have a home health aide or something, they're eligible to get a permit in that zone. And also there's long-term kind of non-resident ones. So if you do have a contractor working on your house, as long as contractors generally do, there would be a permit that would not be that $2 every 24 hours. It would be I'm trying to remember the exact, the same $30, correct, or is it more, Jennifer?
It's a non-resident fee.
It's a non-resident fee, so, but it's not you have to give them a new sticker every 24 hours kind of thing, so.
That's all great, and I think it would be very helpful to the community that we have a single portal. And I don't want to put more burden on staff, but I think we've heard loud and clear today. Consistent one-stop for communication so we can proactively FAQs, because we need to acknowledge perception is reality.
Yes.
Right?
And
so as much as we think we're doing it, or we've told, or we've said, and maybe that's happened, until we can show that transparency and just kind of that one stop, I'd really encourage us to think that way.
Yeah, and so every email that's been coming into us goes into our customer service ticketing system, and so it's something that we're able to search through that. And also, we've been compiling those to kind of figure out what the themes are so that we can put out that information.
I do want to also add, Commissioner, that we have a dedicated page on the Mobile GR section of the website specifically that refers to residential permit parking. I believe we heard from one of the public commenters that they seem to really inform themselves from that. It lists the current policy as well as the current neighborhoods that have the residential permit parking policy. And then we always have reference to our prior commission meeting packets available for the community to reference, as well as we made the change at the beginning of this year that all of our meetings are recorded and then put on the YouTube page so community members can hear the feedback that this body talks about, as well as see the presentations that were presented in real time on those forums. But we can certainly discuss if we need to post an FAQ, if it makes sense to just put it in the packet for June so that folks can reference it.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of things. I recall when Heritage Hill was asked if they wanted a residential parking permit program when Belknap did it. And Heritage Hill wasn't interested. Belknap was, and it's been successful, I think. I think we heard loud and clear the West Side has strong opinions, and they were asked previously too. And they weren't interested in that time period too. And I know we've changed the policy sometime because of the needing to survey based on demand. Is that what it was?
So we do counts in the spring and the fall. And so that was before it was citizen generated. And so we found that the programs that are citizen generated don't necessarily have the best kind of equity application across the city because we're hearing kind of the loudest and the most able to talk to us. So that's where we now survey for parking occupancy twice a year, and that's informing the 75% occupancy for 3 contiguous blocks. It's kind of that basis of where we would start to look at a zone.
I was going to say as well that since the modification of the program in 2018 is that the reason that it's reflected as such in this presentation is that we have received several resident requests from Heritage Hill for residential permit parking, but because of the new way that we look at the data, yes, especially when we talked about how we recalibrated the way that we counted, is that none of it was showing previously of meeting that threshold. Well, obviously now it does show that the sections or portions of Heritage Hill meet that threshold, which is why we're here today. But we have received feedback since even the original implementation back in 2013 for Neighbors of Belknap Lookout, specifically from residents of Heritage Hill.
But we don't go back and ask for a 2/3 vote or whatever that was mentioned by comments, correct?
No, now it's a public hearing process. So again, as a reminder from the presentation in March, that after a discussion, if staff were to bring forward next month, vote for you all to either recommend or not to move the process forward to City Commission, at which time then a public hearing would take place for City Commission, and ultimately they would be the deciding body as to whether or not a permit program would go into place for the proposed area or not.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yes.
Yeah, we found that voting was not as well attended, so you might have 6 people in a 8-block area voting for everybody, so I figure that most people vote for their commissioners, so that was kind of a good proxy.
I was with the city when we expanded the Noble neighborhood vote, and that was still when it was a vote, and at that point, only 15 residents in that area responded, 8 yes, 7 no, therefore 8 residents made the decision on behalf of the entire neighborhood, and so that is another reason why it makes sense to look at the data.
Yeah, I do think there's some misconceptions, certainly, given the strong response, though, today, it would seem to me that maybe we should step back and lengthen this process a bit, as opposed to trying to come back in June with an answer. I think we need some more public engagement to really give them a chance to understand and to comment and maybe make other recommendations if possible. At the very minimum, to understand what we're trying to do and to show that whether it's 1 block or 2 blocks, that these are problem areas. So I really think we need to respect the amount of feedback we've gotten and really react to it. So I would recommend that we give ourselves another couple months of community engagement to really allow people some additional feedback and understanding. And maybe find that these boundaries should be adjusted again. I don't know, I don't know if if we have data, we need to provide the data specifically and make people understand it. I do think we really need to make sure that we're not coming across as punishing residents. And I think anytime you start imposing fees and penalties, then I think we're entering that realm. And I think we need to keep it in mind.
Yeah, the schedule we proposed was based on kind of the initial, very early estimates of when some of the soccer stadium construction was going to start, because that's when the dash lots were going to be decommissioned. So it was that, as all construction schedules, has moved a bit, so we will go back and look at that schedule. We're kind of looking at, we have the November and May time periods for actually issuing the permits and renewal, so that's when, those are kind of the guideposts for our schedule.
Yeah, I think we need to, can we ask staff to come back with a different schedule?
We can take a look at that,
Gives
yeah.
us more time for community engagement and more West Side discussions and Heritage Hill discussions.
We also, again, we do the counts in fall and spring, so we're kicking off our spring count. So,
Okay.
it also can be something that we decide to take a look at the spring counts and see if there's any difference between the fall and spring counts, which would likely then have us discussing this again maybe in the August timeframe, if that would be the desire of the commission.
And we should be clear to people that, there were a lot of people thought we were voting today, or approving something today, which we were not. So we got to make sure.
Yeah, and that was the majority of the people I talked to on the phone yesterday, was just kind of talking about, we try to be a nimble government organization, but we still do move at the speed of government, so that was not something that was going to be voted today.
I think we all recognize parking is a 4-letter word to many people, so I think it'd be nice if people understood the bulb outs that we're doing are to protect
Yeah, and there were some comments just
pedestrian-
on,
pedestrians and crosswalks, and it does have every yin has a yang, and so
Mhm.
that does affect parking, but we're also trying to protect residents or, who are crossing those
I guess
streets.
since the bulb outs are specifically mentioned today, so that 30 feet from the stop sign is not legal parking. And so that's why the bulb outs are that specific dimension. So, I mean, we can also put the frequently asked questions of why don't we paint lines in between, mostly because people don't like white paint all over their cars, and towing is also fraught and expensive. So there's some of those things that, kind of came up in the public. There might be the kind of grab bag of things, but it's also helping to get that context.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Sorry, I have a few questions still about the program, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out and giving their opinion. We do listen, and we are grateful that you took the time out of your day. And I also want to thank the staff for their work putting together this proposal, or I guess pre-proposal, as it might more accurately be named. And I think that there's a lot of work to do before we can figure out what this would look like on a broad scale. Just on a personal note, I lived in Ann Arbor for many years, and they have a very similar program to this in the neighborhood I was living in. So I'm well versed in perhaps the annoyances and also benefits that come from this type of program. And so I have a question, and you did mention this about having contractor permits, things like that if someone is doing work on your home. I also wonder if maybe, given the size of the zones that we would be looking at versus the Belknap example, which is just a few blocks, if I'm correct, if maybe we could look at having a 2-hour permit-free option. This is the case for, I think, a lot of places where it's 2 hours and then you have to pay. And I think that might be a way to, allow people to have gatherings at their home, and it would be accessible, especially given if the permitting or the enforcement ends at 8 p.m., for example. I wonder if that could be an option.
Ariana, we're being requested, or one of us is being requested to go to Calder Plaza.
Okay.
Our Mobile GR director candidates are here, and there's a bus tour scheduled at 2:00, and so one of us needs to facilitate the bus tour. So I will take the question.
Yes. There's Jennifer. She'll answer all your
Thank
questions.
you. I'm
But yes,
sorry.
thank you all.
It's a very
for-
awkward check.
Yeah, you know how to contact us if you have any more questions that, kind of pop up and whatnot. So, yeah, we look forward to seeing how this process can hopefully serve the citizens of Grand Rapids.
Don't run out, just walk out.
Yeah. Commissioner, we were going to be bringing back anyways in light of the recent zoning changes that did get approved by City Commission, changing the unrelated occupancy from 4 to 6. We were going to need to bring forward revisions to our residential parking permit policy anyways to align with those changes. So I believe that what we could do for next step is that we can take a look at some of the comments that you all have provided today. And when we bring forward some changes to the policy, we can add some additional caveats for some of these things in addition to changing to align with the zoning changes. And so that could come first. And then again, we could take a look at the spring counts and do a comparison between the fall and the spring counts before we were to come forward with any future neighborhood boundaries for the permit program.
Yeah, I would also add to that, as you go through and do that, I think it would be good. I know we heard from someone with a disability, if we could make sure that those with disabilities who need access, who maybe don't have off-street parking, would have this available to them. I think that would be good.
Yeah, I don't want to set rates today, but, it does come to mind, is there an option to, if you're a resident, you get one free permit, one car at least, and then any additional cars that would burden the street, then those would have to be, purchased. I don't know if that's an option, but it might help the residents, in those areas that, you know, we're trying to protect. But I think it bears some additional discussion.
Following up too with the comment on the recent zoning amendments too that recently passed, I do think there were some comments about this kind of maybe being a response to or a solution to a problem that people see forthcoming, whereas not everybody necessarily feels like their neighborhoods are already overparked or overutilized for parking. I do think I would be in support of maybe pushing this back a little bit too to see what some of the impacts of those zoning changes are. I know we have, you know, some larger projects downtown kind of in the works or being proposed, and so I think too, you know, while around this body we might have a higher level perspective of some of those moving pieces, not everybody in our neighborhoods, you know, have the time to engage and understand and know what's going on with those two, and so I think sometimes there is an importance of letting things play out a little bit, and quite honestly, you know, our 30,000 foot perspective isn't always 100% correct either, so what we perceive to be a problem might not necessarily always materialize to the fullest extent. So I think it would be interesting to see kind of how some of these other moving pieces impact neighborhoods and sort of what happens in that regard before jumping in and making a hard decision on some of these programs. So.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just real quick, forgot to thank everyone who did show up. I'm recently appointed to this commission, and I would implore everyone who did show up to continue to show up. This is how we make our city better together, by constantly attending these meetings that do happen every month on Thursday at noon in this auditorium. It's really the only way to make our city work for everybody if everybody participates. So thank you very much for attending, and also I echo Commissioner Robbins in that I think it would behoove us to keep these plans, of course, but perhaps see how our new zoning changes affect neighborhoods, and perhaps wait for more feedback from those neighborhoods and then verify with data that these are equitable requests. And also, I think it would be helpful that next time, as a commission, we see this presentation and before the public comment period, because I think that might clear up some misconceptions, perhaps that might appear in the public comments, and that way we can all be level set on the same level. So, thank you again for attending.
Just as a clarification, but the order of the public comment is, can we change it
What do you mean?
on the agenda?
So, per the bylaws, we only need to hold.
This is the order.
Well, no, per the bylaws for the Mobile GR Commission, because you asked me that
Yeah.
previously, so I did speak with our attorney's office. So our bylaws indicate that we only need to hold one public comment, but we try to model ourselves after what City Commission does, in which it's 2 public comments to allow people to speak specifically on agenda items at the beginning, and then any other items on their mind at the end. But we could, there's Max.
Can you give us clarification?
Correct that quickly. Our bylaws actually state that we do need 2 public
Oh, I'm
comment
sorry,
periods.
I was wrong.
The Mobile GR bylaws, you're able to change that. That's not an Open Meetings Act requirement, so it is something this body can change. But in our current bylaws, we do need 2, and they do have to be in the position they are now. But that can be changed by you as long as we have 1 public comment period.
I had them backwards in my mind, I'm sorry.
Okay. But we would have to change bylaws.
We would have to change the bylaws, yes.
Well, that would be something, you know, I'd want the commission to weigh in on, if that's of interest. I'm on a couple other boards that we have 1 comment period at the end, so we get through. I don't disagree that that might help some of the people's impressions of what we're trying to do in a specific meeting.
Right, and I think a lot of that would be very meeting specific.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't cover these kind of topics all the time, but having that option would
certainly be helpful for everyone, I think. So I definitely would want to explore that further.
So we need to know if you could ask maybe the attorney, how do we go about changing the bylaws? We want to do it properly.
Yes, we could,
Or-
add that as an item
Okay.
to talk about modifying the bylaws.
Yeah,
Okay.
just to wrap that up quickly, yeah, we can present it as an item, and then, so we can work on that, but I do believe you have to, at the next meeting, propose it as a change, and then we have to wait a whole meeting, and then you can vote on it at the
Okay.
next meeting.
Okay,
Comment if I could.
yes.
So yeah, thank you for all the comments too, and just one thing I didn't want to get lost, and actually someone else associated with the ACL brought this to ACLU about the documentation required for this too, something just to consider or bring into the FAQ, and because you can never provide those documents, want to make sure that's captured as well.
Anything else? Any volunteers for chairing next meeting?
That's what we have a vice chair for. He's sitting next to you.
Exactly. All right, good discussion. Good discussion. Updates.
Does anybody want to highlight from the MPP group about the micromobility affordability program? The micromobility affordability program update? I think a few folks left. Well, there's an update in the packet about that, about the Lime
Yeah.
Access Pack,
Yeah,
and that we've gotten to an agreement with Lime about offering the offset
Okay.
for those for low income so that they can have fee exemptions for using the micromobility program.
okay, nice. All right, next is.
Oh,
public-
I'm sorry, I will also speak about the budget, brief highlight about the budget.
Yeah.
So, the mobility portion of the budget, which includes the mobile GR, initiated items will be, before the city commission next Tuesday, May 7th. There was an opening, for the citywide budget, overview on April 23rd. There was a special meeting that was held this past Tuesday, in which safe community, economic prosperity, and affordability and governmental excellence were previewed. Next Tuesday, in addition to the regular city commission meeting, the remaining three pillars, of mobility, health and environment, Vital Street, that will be facilitated. May 14th, there will be review workshops and a public hearing specifically on any proposed millages, budget, and fees. That'll be a public hearing only. And May 21st will be when City Commission will be adopting the budget. And so once that adoption takes place, we will then make sure that we are letting you all know at our June meeting what was formally adopted for the next fiscal year.
Okay. All right, anything else?
No.
I will move to public comment again. I'll open it up for general comment. Is the gentleman still here that was?
I believe you left.
Okay. All right, seeing none,